The Nintendo Switch 2 is a minor miracle that continually reminds me that I have been blind as hell since I was a kid. Let me explain. If you've ever been to an optometrist for an eye exam, you're probably familiar with the refraction test that they use to determine the strength of lenses you might need in order to see better. The doctor will have you look at an image in the distance and ask you which of two lenses makes the image appear more clearly, A or B, 1 or 2, this or this. Having spent close to 40 hours with the Nintendo Switch 2, the odd thought I keep having with it is that it feels like I've just completed that eye exam and I'm suddenly in possession of a new pair of glasses with a stronger prescription for the first time after 8 long, increasingly blurry years. And as I step out into the sunlight, the familiar world around me just suddenly looks clearer. This is how the Switch is supposed to look and feel. And yeah, there are some aspects of it that'll take some getting used to, and maybe even some things that I prefer about my old familiar pair. But on the whole, when it comes to showcasing games like Breath of the Wild, wrangling pals in Mario Kart World, or simply browsing the eShop, the Nintendo Switch 2 feels like a minor miracle, same as a new pair of glasses might feel. Like those new glasses, the Switch 2 can be jarring at first. I find myself being overly careful with it. It wasn't cheap, and I haven't grown so used to it that I can kind of just haphazardly fling it across my sofa or atop my bed.
3, 2, 1, a little higher.
Its larger form takes a bit getting used to in handheld mode, which is how I played my original Switch 95% of the time. And with that, the battery life seems shorter, although it really hasn't been an issue as I haven't traveled with it yet, so I'll be curious to see how it goes when I take it along with me on a trip next month. But all of that feels trivial the moment I boot up Breath of the Wild and suddenly I'm hit with that feeling of, oh, this is how the game was supposed to look and play back in 2017. The hardware upgrade is noticeable from the jump. The Great Plateau shines brighter than ever as a peak tutorial thanks to improved load times, a stellar draw distance, and double the frame rate. I only intended for this replay to last a few hours, but suddenly I blinked and found myself with my stamina maxed, Master Sword in hand, 3 Divine Beasts tamed, and decked out as Hyrule's #1 weirdo. Also, I keep having the thought that this might be the objective best game ever made. I know that objectivity in art criticism is not a thing, and I know that 99% of you are probably going to disagree with me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. When I managed to tear myself away from Zelda, it has unsurprisingly been Mario Kart World that's occupied the most time on my new hardware. Whether it's worth the premium $80 price tag is honestly up to all of us as individuals, and it'd be reckless of me to tell you how to spend your own money, considering I just bought an entire goddamn box of Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering card packs, even though I have zero desire to ever learn how to play said card game. But when it comes to Mario Kart itself, I am constantly smiling like a big dumb idiot whenever I'm playing it. Whether I'm moseying around the open world map, soaking in the vibes as the impeccable soundtrack drifts through Nintendo history, or hosting a stream and gathering a few dozen online pals into one game that works about as pain-free as any Nintendo online experience ever has. Which admittedly isn't a huge hurdle to clear, but one that I'm pleasantly surprised they did. And yeah, that was another one of those, oh, this is how easy it should be to play a Nintendo game online moments. That said, the open world is in dire need of a checklist keeping track of challenges I've completed, switches I've hit, collectibles I've snagged, and Yoshi drifters that I've run over in the dead of night and just keep driving, because you'd be surprised how easy it is to convince yourself that that was just a deer and that the blood will wash out and someday this will all just seem like one bad dream.
No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death.
But hot dog, look how cute Waluigi looks in his dumb little Dracula outfit. I'm curious to see what Nintendo does with this thing going forward. 8 Deluxe nearly doubled its track count through DLC, and I could see this one getting additional land masses down the line, like a neat little Isle Delfino, some Donkey Kong Bonanza synergy, or something tying into next year's new Mario movie. I got the Switch 2 that came bundled with a digital code for Mario Kart World, which meant that my first experience with the new hardware after setting it up involved reuniting with my old friend, the Nintendo eShop. I recently made a video about how all of the major digital storefronts are bad in their own unique ways, but the Switch 1's eShop stood tall as the laggiest mess of them all. Which is why I was absolutely thrilled to discover that the Switch 2 eShop is a massive improvement that makes me actually not dread opening it up. Navigating the menus is quick and responsive, dark mode actually carries on over into the shop, and you can sort your wishlist by games that are currently on sale. Yeah, it's still littered with hentai slop, but now you can scroll through that neat porno game at your own speed, as God intended. The other game I snagged at launch on the eShop was Welcome Tour, which is a neat tech demo that absolutely should have come pre-installed on every Switch 2, a la Astro's Playroom on the PlayStation 5. Like Vision Care, it should have been free, but apparently capitalism reigns supreme in the Mushroom Kingdom, just as it does in the US. However, I do have a genuine worry when it comes to certain new games hitting both generations of Switch. I bought the Gex trilogy at launch on June 16th on the Switch 2 eShop because I have class and taste.
Don't drink tap water at Jerry Garcia's.
But it turns out that the Switch 2 version of the game was literally unplayable for a week and a half. Like, this is what happened when I loaded it up. The fix eventually came 10 days later, but the fact that Nintendo allowed me to buy a game on their new hardware that clearly did not work on said hardware is a massive red flag to their process, and one that's worth keeping a critical eye on going forward. Zooming out a bit, there's been some conversation online about how the Switch 2 launch feels somehow less exciting than a traditional new console arrival, despite it breaking sales records across the world. And I kinda get it. Mario Kart World is great, and like its predecessor, will go on to become one of the best-selling games of the decade. But as the lone new first-party game outside of Welcome Tour, it doesn't feel like a big new quote-unquote adventure in the same way that iconic launch games like Mario 64 and Breath of the Wild did. And I think that's partly a feature, not a bug on Nintendo's part. There's a constant stream of new Switch 2 games arriving throughout this first year, with Donkey Kong Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4, Age of Imprisonment, Pokemon Legends ZA, and possibly Splatoon Raiders all slated to hit by the holidays. And I'd be willing to bet a few more make their way within the next 12 months. For the love of God, Nintendo, we've done what you asked, now please give us those Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD ports. Also, please add all of these games to the digital GameCube library. Thank you in advance. For a brief period every few years, when my eyesight gets a little bit worse and I spring for a fresh new pair of glasses with updated lenses, the world just seems like it's a bit brighter with a newfound clarity. A painting in my house that I pass dozens of times each day might suddenly pop with small details I hadn't noticed before. Like magic, I can read street signs from halfway down the block as opposed to right up near the crosswalk. The Amiibo collection that sits near my desk glistens in the sunlight, a reminder of how much I love these characters, how bad I am with my money, and how I should probably dust this shelf more often. That's what my first few weeks with the Switch 2 feels like. It's not some life-altering piece of hardware that's going to change the way I engage with the medium I love. It hasn't delivered a generation-defining experience that I'd implore you all to rush out and play for yourselves. Instead, it feels like it's giving me the games I love in the way that they were meant to always be played. Call them late to the party if you want, but to me, the fact that they eventually showed up at all feels like a minor miracle that I can get behind.